True crime friends, welcome to another episode of Mountain Standard True Crime. I'm Michelle Carlson. The episode that we're going to talk about today is a very sad, tragic, and disturbing case out of Wyoming, where a foster parent couple physically abused their foster children for almost a decade, and the foster father was also sexually abusing female foster children. There were opportunities to stop years of this abuse, but unfortunately, investigators erred on the side of caution with the abusers, not the child victims. This episode is for them. Before I get started, I cannot emphasize enough how much it helps us if you like our episodes and leave a comment. That is one way for the algorithm to pick up our videos. If you're watching and or listening to this episode, please help us out by doing that. I would like to remind everybody that the content in this episode is quite disturbing. It can be very triggering for some, as it does talk about different forms of abuse. So please take that into consideration. It is not appropriate for children. All information that we share on this channel comes from publicly available information and or official requests. And my opinions are simply that, my opinions. They are not meant to be interpreted as fact. It's just me expressing my feelings and my thoughts. So with that being said, here we go. Casper is a city in and the county seat of Natrona County, Wyoming in the United States. It is located in the east central Wyoming on the North Platte River. Casper is the second most populous city in the state of Wyoming next to Cheyenne, with a population of 59,038 people per the 2020 census. Casper is nicknamed the Oil City and has a long history of oil boomtown and cowboy culture, dating back to the development of the nearby Salt Creek oil field. Stephen and Kristen Marler became foster parents in Wyoming in 2008. Over the years, they fostered over 60 children at their home on Casper Mountain. The couple eventually adopted 8 children under their care, 4 boys and 4 girls. They also have 3 biological children. In 2013, the Marlers were recognized by the Federal Administration for Children and Families with an Adoption Excellence Award, one of only 3 families across the nation to get the award that year. They were even invited to the White House to honor their work in foster care. In his 2014 State of the State address, then Wyoming Governor Matt Mead honored the Marlers, describing them as, quote, amazing, unquote, and congratulating them on the award. But what was actually going on behind the Marlers' home closed doors would eventually come to light. And as I said before, it is extremely sad, tragic, and very disturbing. In 2016, the Natrona County Sheriff's Office investigated sexual abuse allegations of foster daughters under the Marlers' care, when the oldest adopted girl told her mom that Marler would come into her room at night, lay with her, and touch her bare genitals. This is Stephen Marler. Unfortunately, they were cleared of any charges. Had Stephen Marler been charged and found guilty of this abuse, perhaps these vulnerable children could have been removed from the home then, potentially preventing years of prolonged sexual abuse at his hands. In February 2021, the Marlers' then 17-year-old foster daughter, Cambria, was admitted to the Wyoming Cowboy Challenge Academy. Her physical examination revealed a, quote, skeletal appearance, swollen tender feet, and some infected tissue, end quote, which was according to the review of medical notes by Natrona County Sheriff's Office investigators. Puberty appeared to have been stunted until after Cambria's intake to the academy, after which she gained 18 pounds. Kristen Marler was charged with 1 count of child abuse for this case, to which she pled no contest in May 2022, and the judge gave her a deferral to dismiss the case altogether if she completed 2 years of unsupervised probation. So that really irks me. I mean, it sounds like from the condition of this gal, they should have gone in and done a full investigation in the home. and evaluated all of the other children. Maybe they did, but I haven't seen anything to say that they did that. And for them to give her unsupervised probation meant that they wouldn't be going by the home to do checks. If Cambria was in that bad of shape, the other children had to have been suffering too. So you take that some of the foster daughters complained that Stephen Marler was sexually abusing them in 2016, and then you have this gal go in to a treatment facility 5 years later in that condition, and all they give is the mom 2 years of unsupervised probation, and they don't even look into Stephen Marler for this. So again, another opportunity to have the minor children removed from the home. I think the punishment was absolutely ridiculous given the severity of the girl's physical condition, not to mention emotional damage that she was incurring. My opinion is that this family was treated with privilege because of their standing in the community as nationally recognized foster parents, and they also owned a business in the community. In May 2023, another girl who had run away and been arrested told authorities that she didn't want to go back home because Stephen Marler had abused her. She recalled specific incidents when she was about 13 years old of Marler laying in bed with her, touching her genitals above and below clothing, and rubbing his, quote, private part against her, according to statements in the affidavit. In July 2023, the foster children were finally removed from the home, according to court filings. That was 7 years after the initial allegations of sexual abuse from the Marler foster girls. I can't imagine how many different instances of abuse could have been stopped had they been taken from the home 7 years earlier when those girls first reported it. During this latest investigation into the Marler home, Cambria, the foster daughter who had gone into treatment years prior, told authorities that for the few months leading up to her going into treatment, her foster parents had forced her to stand with her shoulder against the wall for 12 to 14 hours a day, according to the affidavit. She said the regimen started in October 2020 when she told her foster parents she no longer wanted to live with them. It was reported that out of spite one day, Cambria etched an X onto the dusty glass of a family portrait over Kristen's face. So Kristen is the foster mother. Her foster mother became enraged and began to beat her. Then, allegedly, the foster mother had the other foster children take Sharpies and cross out Cambria's face in all of their family photos. Here's another example of the emotional abuse being inflicted on these poor children, in addition to the physical and sexual abuse. I mean, this was just an absolute house of horrors, and they were probably getting money from the state for being foster parents. Cambria was the oldest of the 8 adopted siblings, all of whom were homeschooled. She said rounds of physical exercise were part of the course of discipline. She said her diet was heavily restricted, and she was given a limited time to eat dinner, after which she would stand against the wall until the family went to bed. She said at one point she was sent to her room with a sock full of dry cat food. How disgusting. These people are absolute animals. Cambria lived at the home from the age of 7 until the age of 17. She told Oil City News that her life there was fairly isolated, and the feeling that something, quote, wasn't right, end quote, increased over the years. She recalled when arriving at the academy and trying to walk normally, despite the excruciating pain in her feet, fearful that she wouldn't be admitted. Supposedly her feet were pooling with fluid because she was on her feet so much because they made her stand against that wall, that her ankles looked like cantaloupe when she got to that facility. She said it was a big relief when the investigation began soon after her intake to the academy. She said, finally, quote, finally someone notices this is wrong. There are people out there that are nice and do care, end quote. Cambria was at the academy for about a year. Stephen Marler was finally arrested in December 2023. The charging document alleges that with one victim, Stephen Marler committed 2 counts of sexual abuse of a minor in the 2nd degree and 3 counts in the 2nd degree against a minor from December 31st, 2017 through January 31st, 2021. Again, that would have been after the time that those girls first reported the abuse. The document also alleges he committed 5 counts of sexual abuse of another child from May 31st, 2013 to April 17th, 2014. So that could have been one of the cases that was reported in 2016. Those charges include 1 count of first-degree sexual abuse using a finger, 2 counts of second-degree sexual abuse, and 2 second-degree sexual abuse counts of third-degree sexual abuse. He was also charged with 9 counts of sexual abuse of a third child that stretched from a period from December 31st, 2011 to January 1st, 2020. That is so just absolutely sad and disgusting. That's 8 years. 8 years of sexual abuse of a child. That included alleged sexual acts with the victim in a treehouse. Marler faced 1 charge of sexual abuse with a minor in the first degree, 3 counts of sexual abuse in the second degree, and 5 counts of sexual abuse in the third degree involving that victim. That poor victim. I can't imagine. Marler also had 1 charge of sexual abuse with a minor in the third degree from an incident involving a 4th victim between May 31st, 2013 through April 2014 in the victim's bedroom, according to the charging document. So that probably was one of the incidents or, alleged timeframe incidents that was reported in 2016. This horrible excuse for a human also faced counts of battery, which involved using physical force to, quote, unlawfully, unknowingly, or recklessly cause bodily injury to another, end quote, and stems from an incident in which he allegedly punched a victim in the nose so hard that the nose bled. The charging document alleged Marler endangered a child by kicking the victim off the roof and did not get the child medical attention. And if I remember correctly, the child had hurt their ankle or leg when they were kicked off the roof. The sexual abuse of a minor in the first-degree charges carried a penalty of up to life in prison, the second-degree charges of up to 20 years in prison, and the third-degree charges of up to 15 years in prison. The battery and child endangerment charges are misdemeanors. The battery charges carry penalties of up to 6 months in jail and a fine of $750. That is not nearly enough. The child endangerment charge carries a penalty of up to 1 year in jail and a $1,000 fine. Up to 1 year in jail and $1,000 for child endangerment? Who's supposed to look after these kids? Their parents are supposed to look after them. Their foster parents are supposed to look after them. And then when they don't, they only get up to 1 year in jail. It's ridiculous. People get way stiffer sentences than that for minor drug charges. Court records show Marler was released on $225,000 cash or surety bond. His bond terms required him not to leave Natrona County or have contact with victims or minors without supervision. So he could have contact with minors and with the victims that he victimized as long as he was supervised. So I'm assuming that his wife supervising him probably would have flown. That probably would have been okay in this situation. So what the hell's the difference as to what was going on there before? I don't understand. It obviously makes me angry. Again, I have a strong opinion on this case that the Marlers were treated with privilege because of their previous good standing in the community, as well as the fact that Stephen owned a business in the city. In doing my research for this story, I couldn't find even 1 photo of either of these deranged and evil monsters wearing jail attire. I couldn't find a booking photo. I couldn't find a photo of either of them in handcuffs. I couldn't find any photos that depicted them as being criminals in any way, shape, or form, and it just made me sick. Assistant District Attorney Brandon Rosti argued the case for the state of Wyoming, and Devin Peterson was Stephen Marler's defense attorney. Arguments during the trial included some very disturbing claims by the victims. Rosti emphasized that the prosecution's evidence showed jurors that Marler tried to groom his adopted daughters by doing daddy massages with them and then moved on to committing acts of sexual abuse with some of them when his wife was not in the home. One of the sons also testified to seeing Marler enter the girl's bedroom when his wife was away and then hearing moaning coming from the room. Testimony from the adopted children at the trial also included descriptions of group punishment that included extended exercises, spankings with a rubber strap, belt, or piece of wood, and in one instance, being sent out in the snow in pajamas and barefoot to run after none of the children confessed to leaving a ski pole outside. Seriously. Leaving a ski pole outside? They got that kind of abuse from that. It's just absolutely disgusting. The prosecution also showed jurors a series of short videos that included Marler receiving a massage from his adopted daughters. Another showed a naked boy who had just received a spanking with marks on his thigh as other children stood in formation. They stood in formation. This is like some kind of horrible abusive camp for children. It just makes me sick. I mean, how sick of an individual do you have to have this much control over children? Rosti, who was the prosecutor, talked about video evidence taken from cameras initially placed in the Marler home after that investigation in 2016 into the alleged sexual assault on a foster daughter between May 31, 2013 and April 17, 2014. He reminded the jury that the DVR was erased and that it was only extracted in January 2025, but the evidence did corroborate testimony of the Marlers' adopted children about the culture of the home. The abusive culture, I might add. He also said an expert witness had talked about how sexual assault victims delay their disclosures of abuse by an average of 2.5 years, which I thought was really interesting, but it makes sense that it probably takes that long for them to develop the courage to go and report this. If they did report it, we know that a lot of sexual abuse actually goes unreported. Testimony showed the oldest adopted daughter did not disclose her sexual encounters with Marler until she was at the Wyoming Cowboy Challenge Academy. During a conversation with girls about their relationships with the boys, Rosti said, is when she eventually disclosed that he had been sexually abusing her. Rosti also went over the other charges that involve battery and children endangerment, recounting the testimony of a daughter who said she was punched in the face, and 2 adopted sons who corroborated that account. He also reminded jurors of the testimony of 3 sons, one who told about being kicked off a roof while shoveling snow. The defense argued that the disclosure, when Cambria disclosed the sexual abuse, came because the girl did not want to return to the Marler residence. Well, duh, of course she didn't want to return. Peterson, who was the defense attorney, countered that the prosecution had not proven its case and talked about specific allegations of sexual assault in bedrooms with other girls present and questioned whether his client would have done that, knowing the other girls could wake up. Yeah, of course he would. He was probably abusing all of them. He told jurors an allegation involving one of Marler's adopted daughters who said that Marler assaulted her on a couch, while one of Marler's biological daughters slept on it as well. He said that that should also be questioned. Would that make any sense? Asked the defense attorney. Yeah, because the guy is a freaking predator. And he always thought that he wasn't going to get caught. And even if the biological daughter woke up, he'd have some kind of story to tell. Peterson argued that all of the sexual charges come from a desire of the adopted children to leave the home. Yeah, no shit. They wanted to leave the home. But there's too much evidence here, in my opinion, that proves that he was sexually and physically and emotionally abusing them. The defense attorney said that when the oldest adopted daughter made the allegation at the Wyoming Cowboy Challenge Academy, it provided a strategy for the other adopted children, and said that during an initial interview, one of the foster daughters told an investigator of the 2013-2014 incident with her, in which Marler allegedly took her into his bedroom and removed her pants and assaulted her, and that Marler's wife was in the room at the time. And then she changed her testimony at trial. Peterson, who's the defense attorney, said, quote, "All the state has is these stories," end quote. He then reminded the jury that they needed to ask the question, can I say beyond a reasonable doubt that it happened? I could say without a reasonable doubt it happened. Peterson also pointed back to the testimony of a Denver counselor who has worked extensively with foster children and testified that children taken from a home manipulate things because they've lost control of their lives. He said the Marler children, the girls and the boys, wanted out of the home, and the accusations represent revenge. It's the reason for them to make things up, he said. Peterson conceded the video showed the culture of the home during COVID, and that the adopted children were teens and that the Marlers were struggling. He said, quote, "They have a desperate need to control the situation, but he is not charged with that." Excuses, excuses, excuses for a disgusting pedophile. He said the children, after the allegations and after being pulled from the Marler home, had group counseling and communicated on social media and had ample time to develop their stories. He said there is no proof of any of this because it did not happen. Well, there's their testimonies and there's video evidence, so I think there is proof. Rosti, the prosecutor, said one video was from a time in 2020 when Kristen was confirmed to be out of town. It shows Marler crawling over a mattress where all the girls slept and sitting on one girl's face. Then the girls, without any visible reaction, began massaging Marler under the covers for a 45-minute period. Rosti said he was counting on the fact that his daughters would never come forward and tell what happened. Absolutely brazen behavior, Rosti said. He noted that the defense attorney did not address the footage in closing because there was no answer for it, which I agree. Rosti told jurors some of the testimony by the various children in the home and events were not always all the same because memory is messy and truth is messy and based on the experience and perspective of the individual, which I agree with that as well. Rosti reminded the jury a couple of times about the testimony of one of the adopted daughters who recounted Marler's words as he allegedly assaulted her. This is disgusting. So during the girl's testimony, she said that Stephen Marler said to her, quote, "I know I shouldn't love you like this, but I do," end quote. Disgusting. Jurors heard an audio clip from Marler taken in an interview where an investigator asked if he ever touched his foster or adopted daughter sexually. He said, "I guarantee I did not touch those girls. I did not molest those girls." In the clip, Marler also says he prayed for a foster daughter who had lost her father to suicide, saying, quote, "I was either on the side of the bed or I may have laid down beside her," end quote. Gross. During the previous year, all the girls were made to sleep on one mattress while all the boys slept on another mattress in the homeschool room. Rosti said during this time, the children were made to shower and go to the bathroom with the doors open. I can't even. He said that food was rationed and locks were installed on the refrigerator. Horrific, absolutely horrific. Rosti said another video shows one of the boys standing naked while Marler holds a rubber strap and other children are made to stand and watch. The boy and Marler move out of the frame and the boy returns into the camera with obvious injuries to his buttocks. That's proof, right? How much more proof do you need? One boy testified that in the winter of 2020 through 21, he and other children were shoveling snow off the roof when Marler kicked him and caused him to slide off, which gashed his leg. That was the one that I talked about he didn't get medical attention for. 2 other witnesses testified to that event. Peterson countered that the prosecution had not proven its case and talked about specific allegations of sexual assault in bedrooms with other girls present and questioned whether his client would have done that, knowing the other girls could wake up. I already expressed my opinion on that. Yes, he would. He told jurors an allegation involving one of Marler's adopted daughters who said that Marler assaulted her on a couch, while one of Marler's biological daughters slept on it as well, should also be questioned. We talked about that earlier. So the prosecution went on to say that hidden behind the walls of that home and the smiles in public, there was a culture of silence, obedience, and fear. And said that what Stephen Marler wasn't counting on was that they would find their voice and that there would be camera footage to corroborate their accounts. Judge Carrie Johnson told the jury at the beginning of the trial, almost 2 weeks ago, that the jury could consider the video evidence in the overall context of the case, though it was not direct evidence of any specific allegation of sexual abuse. Defense attorney Devin Peterson told the jury that the Marlers had been in the midst of a power struggle with their foster children and that the girls had fabricated the sexual abuse allegations to get away. The prosecutor went on to say that he sexually desired these girls during closing arguments. He said that Marler was counting on the fact his daughters would never come forward and tell what happened. Rosti said that while Cambria was still at the academy, she heard her peers discussing sexual topics, prompting her to state that those were activities she associated with her father. Her peers encouraged her to report it further. Rosti said the girl told authorities she would wake up with Marlar on top of her, grinding and minimally clothed. She said she was made to touch Marlar's genitals and reported an incident of penile penetration. That allegation resulted in one of 2 first-degree counts of sexual abuse of a minor in the first degree, which concerns acts of penetration, however slight. Cambria, now 21, also said that Marlar punched her in the face after she told Kristen, the foster mother, about the sexual abuse. She added that whenever the family was being investigated, the children were told what to say during family pep talks. Rosti, the prosecutor, said that the children were made to write down anything they told investigating authorities. That infuriates me. They knew damn well what they were doing was wrong, and they consistently, manipulated those kids. And you know damn well they were gaslighting them and telling them that, none of this was going on. They were making it up. It was all lies, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the trial, Natrona County District Court Judge Carrie Johnson took 45 minutes to instruct the jury on the 17 charges Marlar was facing, 11 involving varying degrees of sexual abuse of a minor, 5 of battery, and 1 of child endangerment. The incidents behind the charges are alleged to have taken place between November 15th, 2012 and May 25th, 2022. So 9.5 years of this horrible abuse. Marlar himself did not testify. Judge Johnson reminded the jurors that this is a constitutionally protected right and that they were not to draw any inferences from it. The jury deliberated for almost 7 hours. They found Marlar guilty of 1 count of sexual abuse of a minor in the first degree, 4 counts of sexual abuse of a minor in the second degree, and 3 counts of sexual abuse of a minor in the third degree. Those all involved touching victims' private parts, rubbing his private parts against victims, and in one case, raping a girl. For the third-degree sexual abuse charges, the jury found Marlar took, quote, immodest, immoral, and indecent liberties with his victims, end quote. He was convicted on all counts of battery and the single count of child endangerment. He was found not guilty on 3 sexual abuse incidents of a minor charges involving 2 foster daughters who were in the Marlar home from May 2013 through April 2014. On all of the 5 battery charges that involved 5 victims, boys and girls, the jury found him guilty. During closing arguments, Rosti emphasized that the prosecution proved that Marlar tried to groom his adopted daughters by doing daddy massages with them and acted intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly. Marlar showed little emotion as the verdict was read. Of course, he showed little emotion. He's a monster with no soul. You have to be able to commit acts like that. And, while doing it, convince the people that you're committing the acts against that you love them. The combined felony charges carry a penalty of up to 175 years in prison. He is being held without bond. I'm still waiting for the sentencing date, but I'll definitely keep you guys posted on when the sentencing is going to happen and what the sentence actually is. But I have one looming question in this case. What about Marlar's wife? I cannot find anything about her being charged since that 2022 charge where she was ridiculously sentenced to 2 years of unsupervised probation. I feel very strongly that she needs to be held accountable for any and all of her involvement and complicity in the abuse of these children. She needs to be held accountable. I truly hope that they have all received the help and support that they most certainly need and that they are in safe and supportive environments now. We make it a point to share resources at the end of our videos when relevant. There is a national website and phone/text number called Child Help that is for the prevention and treatment of child abuse. Please share this resource if there was anyone you are aware of that could benefit. And please, please, please report any signs of child abuse that you observe. It is up to all of us as adults to stand up for children who are in physical or emotional danger. Until next time, please be aware of your surroundings, stay safe, and take care of yourselves. See you next time.